Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil mursalin. Sayyidina wa maulana Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Rabbi yassir wa la tu'assir. Rabbi tamim bil khair. Alhamdulillah. I hope that everyone is in good health, in a good state. We are entering into the 10th day of Ramadan. May Allah accept our deeds. May Allah increase our devotions. May Allah increase our closeness to Him. May Allah increase our productivity in the remaining days of Ramadan. Productivity by virtue of our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and also productivity in how we deal with His creations, in providing, in helping, in providing positivity and empowering fellow creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Alhamdulillah, we're entering into the third week where we are discussing about the prophetic household, and this is going to be the last time we're going to talk about the prophetic household. And some were asking me personally, so for all that we've talked about the Prophet ﷺ's household, about his family, what are the main features? If there's anything that we can take away from the prophetic household, what are the main features that we can take away from it, and then we uphold it inside our own respective families? Now, if there's a way to sum it all up, all right, I will say that the prophetic household, it is based on three very important elements. Firstly, it is hinging on knowledge, the importance of knowledge. The Prophet ﷺ, even when he deals with his family members, he ensures that the interactions, the communication, it evolves around knowledge sharing, that it is a beneficial talk, it is a beneficial conversation. It is not something that is just being said in haste, or something that is just time that is wasted with idle talk. An example of knowledge is in the sense that when they were the Prophet ﷺ, he entered after doing his Fajr prayers, he entered and he saw his beloved wife, Sayyidatina Juwairiyah. She was doing her zikr. He's doing her zikr. And the Prophet ﷺ, what he did was ask her, "You have been in a state of zikr ever since I left, and I came back, you are still doing zikr." And Sayyidatina Juwairiyah says, "Yes." And the Prophet ﷺ taught her how to recite a tasbih, a zikr, which can amount up to all the time that she spent since he left and came back, which is Subhanallah wa bihamdi adada khalqi wa ridha nafsi wa zinata arshi wa minada kalimati. Now, when he taught her that, that is an example of the prophetic household, that he's always sharing with his family members beneficial knowledge, that there is knowledge that's being transmitted throughout the household, even in casual terms, in casual conditions. Now, in our modern household today, what we can do is to have, all right, influences, or we can have, all right, elements that indicate that this is a place for knowledge. For example, we have bookshelves, we have books, all right. When we talk to our children, we have segments whereby we share knowledge to them, we share stories with them, all right. So and we allow for inquiry in our household, all right. We allow for people to ask questions. We do not be the dictator who determines what kind of knowledge that the people should have in the household, but we also allow for them to ask, to have doubts, to clarify. So Zaidina Aisha once used to ask the Prophet ﷺ about the fate of those people who were killed. When the birds of Ababil, when they dropped stones, all right, on the soldiers of Abraha, all right, and there were those innocent people who were along the way at Mecca. So what happened to these innocent people? Some of them were businessmen, some of them were doing trading, some were just passers by, and the Prophet ﷺ addressed it. So there's a healthy household allows for questioning, right? And so the child, as he grows up, he knows that if I have doubts, if I have anything, the people I can turn to will be the people in the household, my parents. We have a problem today sometimes when as the child grows older, he decides to keep things to himself. Why? Because every time he asks a question, he either gets scolded or he gets undermined. All right, he's being made to look like he's ignorant, he's foolish, or even someone who is not respecting or is not respectful towards his elderlies. So the first element is knowledge. Even this knowledge also it translates into the choice of film, right? The choice of entertainment we want to have for our children. It's beneficial entertainment. The kind of shows you want to watch for them. It's a show that has a moral. There's a moral at the end of it that teaches them something to be and indicates to them, even though they're casually watching a show, that there is a lesson to be learned that they can take and absorb and make them better people. So one is knowledge. The second element that's found in the Prophet's household is spirituality. Right? Spirituality. The Prophet ﷺ, right, is narrated that Aisha says that the Prophet ﷺ, the popular narration about how the Prophet used to pray until his legs swell. And then he says, Afala akuna abdan shakuran, that he is praying out of gratitude, out of thankfulness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A household, right, the household that we have should be one that is filled with gratitude, because we feel thankful to have been given a partner, all right? A partner that is understanding, a partner that is together with us, a partner that understands our shortcomings, a partner that has contributed to the creation of the family that we have right now, right? If you have children, all the more you should be thankful to be blessed with children. And children, if the children are righteous, all the more you should be thankful. If the children are still young, all right, that we have the joy of looking at them, playing with them, and having fun with them. All right, so a house must be based on spirituality, and spirituality is manifested in Ramadan here, all right, during the circuit breaker period. All the more our house, all right, should be immersed with spirituality. We're talking about our prayers, right, in congregation, not just Tarawih prayers, but our prayers 5 times a day. It is in congregation. There's Quranic recitation, right, between us. The husband checks the wife's recitation. The wife also can check the husband's recitation. Do not always assume that the husband is the one that knows everything, all right? The child was allowed to sit together, and then in an interactive manner, in a fun manner, we teach them memorization. All these are translated to spirituality. Why is this important? So that the child, or in fact anyone in the household, knows that in times, at all times, we need to be connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The child knows, especially in this circuit breaker period, he sees, all right, or he or she sees that my father, my mother, they have to work from home. All right, so he sees the mother and father, they have to work from home, they have some things to do. But when it comes to prayers, all right, my mother and father puts emphasis onto it. Right, no matter how busy my parents are, they be reciting the Quran. No matter how busy they are, there are times whereby you see them reciting the zikr. They're doing their recitation of their wird after their prayers, to show that this spirituality is what drives the human being, drives the good Muslim, that he's always connected to his creator. Okay, this is very important for the child to see that this is part of their schedule, this is part of their routine. Even small manifestations of spirituality, like we teach our children before we eat, Allahumma barik lana fima razaqtana qina adhaban nar, or before iftar. I see some wonderful videos on IG about how people, right, some of our asatizas, they show how they recite the dua before you start your iftar. All right, and these are all examples of how spirituality is manifested in a household. The third thing is compassion. And compassion is most important. We always overlook this. Most people, they have knowledge and they have spirituality. So you have an earnest worshiper, an ardent worshiper at home. All right, he's devoted to his acts of worship, but then he totally ignores, or he or she totally ignores the fact that the rest of the people in the household, they need that communication. They need that time together. They need that time spent with laughter, with joy, with fun. This is the part that we always overlook. We think that being in this month of Ramadan, especially, we feel that, well, we need to go into a state of retreat. And retreating means what? We ignore the people around us? No. All right. In fact, these people around us can become the reason for us to get a blessed Ramadan, to get an elevated Ramadan. So this involves how we treat our children, with compassion, with love, with understanding towards them. Right? Look at the Prophet ﷺ, how he knows and how he's more sensitive towards Sayyidatina Aisha. He used to tell Sayyidina Aisha and says, I know when you are angry with me. So the Prophet doesn't use his authority, says that, no, you are not allowed to be angry with me. So with this healthy relationship, he says, I know when you're angry with me. So Sayyidina Aisha says, when? He says that when you're angry with me, he says, by the Lord of Ibrahim. And when you're pleased with me, he says, by the Lord of Muhammad. So that shows how sensitive the Prophet is. He knows what makes when the wife is angry. All right. At the same time, if the Prophet knows when Sayyidina Aisha is angry, he also knows what makes her happy. So there was a time, and we know this hadith well, all right, whereby there was an Abyssinian group that was performing, right? They was performing outside at the compound of Masjid of the Prophet's mosque, and what the Prophet did was to allow for Sayyidina Aisha to watch it until she got tired, all right, until she's seen enough, and then the Prophet took her in. So this is again another example of how being sensitive and knowing. So if you notice, the prophetic household is one that is balanced. If there's a word to describe it, it is balance. It's a balance between knowledge. So you have knowledge, all right. So you abundance. If in our modern context, you have a lot of reading, all right. You have a lot of time to spend to to talk, to share stories and communication. Now, this intellectuality or this knowledge is being moderated by spirituality, right? We want to create human beings or Muslims that are intelligent, that are smart, but they know that their smartness, their intelligence comes from Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. So this is moderated by spirituality, from connection to Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, knowing that Allah is all knowing and most wise. And then it is with compassion. Compassion is the one that actually eases, that makes our worship, that makes our acts of worship or devotions a restful one, that it is not something that is tiring. All right. Sometimes we get tired from acts of worship. Why? Because one, we do it in excess. When we do it in excess, means that there is no avenue elsewhere for us to allow for rest, to allow for joy. Because when you talk about devotion, is an action which is full of concentration. All right. It is full of, there's almost immense concentration in it. So there's a need for us to actually have some form of relaxation, some form of tranquility, some form of happiness, some form of joy that balance out that act of spirituality, and that comes with compassion. And what end of compassion we can have in our house today, all right, despite this circuit breaker period, will be to have games, to have fun. Now, playing games is not something that is not religious. Right? If your child comes to you and he wants to have wants to play a game of Scrabble, all right, or if there's a beneficial video game that he wants to play with you, or you choose a movie, select a movie and you watch it with the child, a beneficial movie that does not corrupt his moral, all right, that you enjoy it with him, stories that shows the importance of having the right principle in getting through life, watch it. All right, my personal favorites would be movies like Kung Fu Panda. Okay, then there's movies like Kung Fu Panda, then you show it to the you straight to the child, and then the child, you tell him about the importance of heritage, the importance of values, the importance of tradition, the importance of humility, the importance of working on talent, the importance of confidence. You teach your child all this, so he finds that, as this child grows up, what is most important is that this child sees that he was raised in a household that has everything. So he won't turn anywhere. If he's faced with problems later on in his life, he knows he can come back to his family. All right. He knows that this family that they can talk about anything under the sun. This family will not reject him. That this family has it for him. That if he feels that he's depressed, he's anxious, he can come back to the household. So many people, all right, in this period of circuit breaker, it becomes something that is a challenge for them, because why? Now the house doesn't become a place for them that in which they can actually enjoy or have tranquility or have peace or have serenity. Why is that so? Because it doesn't have that. It doesn't, because there is no effort made towards that, or there's no awareness towards that. So a Muslim household should have this. So even in terms of infrastructure wise, all right, everything must point towards all these three elements manifesting itself. You must have a proper prayer place, right? Your living room, all right, can be a manifestation of all three things. You can have a proper prayer place, so your child knows, everyone in the household knows that when it's time for prayers, everyone's gathered there. There's even a schedule, there's a routine, right? Call to prayers, right? Who's on duty today? All right, my first son, second son, all right, and henceforth, or after, who's doing sharing after salat, all right, who's doing the sharing about, or sharing a hadith or sharing a story. Okay, and then if you have a television, it's strategically placed, of course not in the direction of the qibla, whereby when you're doing your prayers, you're reminded of what show you're going to watch after that, but in a good location, where after that you can be comfortable. That's when you actually have some fun, have some form of entertainment, have some form of communication. All right, then you have a library for yourself with all the books that you can read, all right, of a higher level, all right, of an elevated profile for adults perhaps, all right. And then at another corner for your child, a mini library. I've seen houses with mini libraries. It doesn't have to be a big house. It's a simple house, all right, but then it has a mini library and the child goes there. And then, I've seen some houses whereby they even arrange, all right, they even have teams for it's Ramadan. And in Ramadan, first 10 days, a different book is being put up there. So much effort. So again, another important aspect we need to look at in the prophetic household, you can see is the effort. All right, there's effort in it. Last week, I talked about how the Prophet emphasizes balance. And this balance is seen in the hadith whereby the Prophet ﷺ, Sayyidina Aisha says that he will doing a lot of things at home, and the things that he will do include mending his own shoes, sewing his own clothes, patching them up. All right. He noticed that he doesn't like to trouble anyone, so he has his own work. And then, but when it comes to prayers, right, when it comes to prayers, he's the first to go for the prayers. He'll leave everything and go for prayers, and that can be what we have in our household. And this is a good time for us to set this house in place. If you have not given much thought to it, usually our house becomes a place where we come back for a rest, all right, for us to recharge. Now, make our place, all right, not just a temporary place of temporary place for recharge, but it's permanently in a state of recharging us. We feel energized, that we like to be in the house, that we like to see the people in our household, that we enjoy their company. That is the first company we turn to when we face problems. So remember, a reiteration, three aspects of the prophetic household. There's knowledge, there's spirituality, there's a lot of compassion, there's a lot of love that's going on around the house. All right, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us a household that is full of love, that's full of devotion, that's full of knowledge, and this is the household that we will take with us to Jannah, insyaAllah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All right, may we have a blessed Ramadan. May this Ramadan be the most memorable Ramadan. All right, of course, it's memorable as it is given the conditions that we have, but it's also memorable because might be the Ramadan we finally sit down and decide that this is where I decide to turn my house into what they call, all right, Baiti Jannati, my house, my paradise. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wassalamu alaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh.